This is Ethan, and I'm here with Dave, and together we are Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, episode 156-inch.
On this episode, we interview Brad Hebert, the mastermind behind the 2018 Weird Al Vanity Tour Tracker spreadsheet.
It's Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
It's a podcast about Weird Al.
It's Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Seriously, the whole podcast is about Weird Al.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
You don't have to listen, but we're glad you are.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Well, we did it, Dave! We made it to the last episode of Season 3 of Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
And not only that, but it is also our 13-foot episode.
Wow! So that means for the past 156 weeks... for the past 156 inches...
Much better.
We have been putting out brand new, exciting, entertaining, captivating, and compelling podcast episodes all about our favorite musical artist of all time.
You forgot to say engrossing.
Well, of course.
And you forgot handsome?
Well, I do agree Weird Al is a very handsome individual, but do we really need to say that on our podcast?
No. I mean us, the two of us. We are handsome.
That doesn't even make sense in the context of what I was just saying. That has nothing to do...
Yeah, what a wild ride it has been. Ethan, I'm so glad that I have spent the past 3 years getting to talk about Weird Al with you and so many incredible guests.
I couldn't not disagree more, which means I do agree. I think I don't not know what's going on.
Wow, another triple negative. So does that mean that you do believe that somebody can, never mind. So how do you feel about clean rappers like Will Smith?
And we've met so many incredible Weird Al fans and listeners of the podcast, both online and in person. Wow, what a pretty stinking majestic 3 years and now 156 episodes we've had.
And here's to another 1,844 more. And then we are done. And we can finally get back to our normal lives where we exclusively listen to and obsess over Barry Manilow songs. And, oh gosh, I miss that man's sweet, sweet serenade. Oh, Barry. Oh, Barry.
Don't worry, he'll be fine. Well, I suppose we should get to the big, huge, colossal news that everyone is talking about.
That is right. Yesterday, April 26th, kicked off the start of Weird Al's unfortunate return of the ridiculously self-indulgent, ill-advised Vanity Tour.
The 133-show tour started at the Bardavon Opera House in Poughkeepsie, New York. And Dave, you and I were there!
Yeah, we were there. But, unfortunately, due to the complex rules and regulations set forth by the Canadian Podcast Commission's Oversight Committee on North American Touring, that strictly prohibits us from telling you about the show in this context.
So for everyone who wants to hear all about our pretty stinking majestic adventures in Poughkeepsie, be sure to listen to Ridiculously Self-Indulgent bonus episode 3 centimeter as soon as it's available.
The Ridiculously Self-Indulgent bonus episode 3 centimeter, just like all of our bonus episodes, will first get released exclusively on our Patreon page over at patreon.com/2000inch. And, then after, some non-specified amount of time, we will eventually release it through our normal channels for the cheapskates. I mean, the general public. Whenever our lousy, rotten, stinking intern Frank gets around to finally doing it.
And speaking of the ridiculously self-indulgent bonus episode series, Dave and I intend to record a bonus episode reviewing each and every concert that at least one of us attends on the unfortunate return of the ridiculously self-indulgent, ill-advised Vanity Tour.
Our first 2 episodes were recorded before the tour started and just dropped earlier this week for the general public.
If you haven't listened already, be sure to check them out so you can hear our thoughts on the tour, hear which concerts we intend to attend, and hear our controversial first takes on the brand new tour merchandise.
As we record new concert reviews and bonus episodes, we will put them up on Patreon as soon as they are done. So if you are not already in our Patreon family, now would be a really good time to join so you can be the first to hear all about our 38 plus concerts that Ethan and I collectively plan to attend.
And our Patreon family now has access to a brand new feature which will provide them with their very own private RSS feed. That's going to let them listen to all of the bonus episodes and any other special exclusive audio content through their favorite podcast apps. It's very cool.
It's pretty stinking majestic.
Well, with all of that out of the way, we can finally get to what's happening in Weird Al
Discover Darwin ad.
Oh.
Yeah, we'll get to that later because this episode is brought to you in part by Discover Darwin, promoting tourism in Darwin, Minnesota. You twit. Not only is historic Darwin, Minnesota beautiful, it's also chock full of shaving cream. Be nice and clean. Shave every day and you'll always look keen.
All right, enough of that. Darwin, Minnesota is home to the Darwin-Dassel Park Horse Trail.
While on the Darwin-Dassel Park Horse Trail, horses may enjoy the following enriching activities.
They can scratch each other's butts.
They can follow things on the ground.
They can play with toys.
They may roll around.
And sleep standing up.
They may also breathe through their nose.
But one thing horses may never do is ride on the trails while the ground is soft during the spring or after rain falls.
Or else! So visit Darwin, Minnesota on your next horse trotting expedition. Discover Darwin, more than just a twine ball. And after you visit Darwin, Minnesota, be sure to visit discoverdarwin.biz. Well, with the unfortunate return of the ridiculously self-indulgent, ill-advised Vanity tour back in full swing, we are very excited to get to this episode's interview.
Dave and I are very excited to welcome to the podcast. He is a man very interested in both Weird Al and spreadsheets, much like Dave and myself. He is the creator of the 2018 Weird Al Vanity Tour song tracker, the infamous spreadsheet that tracked every single song and every performance on the 2018 ill-advised Vanity Tour. Please welcome to the podcast its creator, a Weird Al fan, our friend Brad Hebert. How's it going, Brad?
Hey, thank you very much for having me. That was quite an introduction.
This amazing masterpiece that you created and updated in 2018 is something that I found myself looking at all the time, and something still to this day I will go back and reference from time to time.
Likewise. I do as well. Starting it, had no idea that, it would be so useful, for me and apparently plenty of other people.
Indeed. Well, we definitely have a bunch of questions we want to ask you about, this amazing song tracker. But I guess before we get into that, can you tell us a little bit of background about yourself? How did you become a Weird Al fan?
Sure. I should probably start by letting everyone know I'm probably literally the world's biggest Weird Al fan because I'm the only person who has seen him on every single tour going back to his first live show.
Wow.
In 1993. Most people don't know he was making music before the Stevie Wonder song they used to sing about the Amish, but before that, there were bootlegs you could get in the early days of the internet. Most people haven't heard these. One of my favorite ones was a David Bowie song. He sang about Rice Baby. It was so weird. I think you can still find it. Just search this on Google. Rice Baby. Weird Al Yankovic. Oh, and Elmo's Got a Gun is another good one. What's so funny?
Wow, you are the biggest Weird Al fan. All this amazing knowledge.
Right. You caught on too quick to that. Oh, well. Can't pull anything past you guys. What was the question? How did I get into Weird Al?
Yeah, I mean, Elmo's Got a Gun, great introduction to Weird Al, but I mean, there has to be something else that got you into Weird Al.
So, I think it was around 1987. I think it was my 7th birthday party. I had some friends over, and one of them got me the Polka Party cassette. and I'd never heard of Weird Al or anything, and I kind of had a affinity for music and stuff, but so I put it in the tape deck and hit play, and just like was blown away and like obsessed, and I just didn't want to stop listening, and probably had gifts to open, and my mom was probably like, okay, you can stop listening now, we got to this birthday party, but I could just I remember that moment. I don't have a great memory, but that's one that's like really burned into my brain.
What's really incredible about that is, in the literal 3 years that Dave and I have hosted this podcast, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is the first time I've ever heard someone say that Polka Party was their first introduction to Weird Al. That is it wasn't a very well-selling album when it came out. I mean, it's pretty rare for someone to say that, and I think that's incredible that was your first introduction, because it's a really fantastic album, and it really deserves more credit, I believe. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm always going to be biased, and it's going to have a special place for me because it was the first one I heard. But that's all it took, and it's still got all the plenty of Al ingredients, that
Indeed.
just aren't going to disappoint on any album. So that really changed my life. I became pretty obsessed and wore out like all the cassettes. I got all the cassettes, of course, and like then I remember one part got kind of damaged on Even Worse, and so like now anytime I hear You Make Me, like when it gets to that part, I kind of expect the tape to right. but yeah, and then I was already kind of interested in music, but hearing the accordion really caught my ear, and so I kind of begged my parents, and I'm grateful, very fortunate that they kind of supported interests. If I was passionate about something, and I didn't want to like be like Weird Al. I knew I couldn't be a front man like that, but I liked the sound of the accordion, and the mechanics of it and everything, and so they waited a little while to be sure it wasn't just a little phase, but then they eventually got me one and got me some lessons, found someone in the area that could teach me a little bit, and that was kind of my first instrument, and I since branched out and played some other stuff, but very influential.
So you got obsessed with Al, you started playing the accordion. When did you actually get to see him live for the first time?
It took me a while. My parents weren't too much into going to concerts and stuff like that. And eventually, like, I kind of got a driver's license and some autonomy. And, for me, I felt like it was later in life, 1999, I think it was, that I went, drove, I don't know how many hours, 7 or so, to Myrtle Beach, from where I was in East Tennessee, to see him play with a friend. That was like one of my first long trips, one of my first big concerts, and so finally got to see him. The seats weren't good. Like, I didn't know anything about buying tickets or going to a concert, but we made it, and I saw the show, however far away I was, and loved that, and went again pretty soon, like the next year or something, and then got into college and very busy, and listening to all kinds of other weird music. Like, I'm just obsessed with music in general. I've spent way too much of my life just like looking for new music, like wading through all this stuff that's great, but just not, it's like every once in a while something will stand out above it, and that's just what I love to do, is dig around for music in life. But anyway, and then some time went on. I grew up a little bit and went back to another show. I think I'd moved to Seattle at that point and saw him out there in 2012, I think. Then I moved kind of back to Tennessee, where I'm at now. And, then I saw him on the Mandatory Fun Tour, I think 2015. And, and then waited. It was a few more years, and then the Vanity tour was announced, and it's like my greatest dream came true. Like I never would have imagined he would do that. I think that was way for most hardcore fans. Like, this is amazing, and totally reinvigorated. My interest. My musical focus went back to Weird Al, and like I dug out all the DVDs and everything I had, and also because I ended up getting a VIP ticket once, and I was like, oh, there's this Jeopardy thing. Like, if I end up having to do some kind of trivia, I want to know my stuff. And so I was like watching the Weird Al Show DVDs with commentary and like get into something really obscure. And of course the questions weren't that obscure. But anyway, it was just a reason to like dive as deep as I could again and listen to every piece of Al media that I had.
That's incredible. I love that.
Yeah. That's great. And then that brings you up. So is that what the spark was to start this tour tracker, getting to listen to all these old songs? And then what was the the spark that caused you to decide to track all of these songs as they were performed, all these fun, unusual, rarely played, most of them, songs that turned up on the 2018 tour?
Yeah. I can't remember if it was, just like the first show. And I can't remember the exact sequence of events, but as I was realizing, there were going to be all these songs, and, he was playing so much that he had never played live before. Just for my own personal sanity, I needed to have some way to, keep it all visualized and keep track of it. It's not just something I would try to, keep floating around, like I needed to know everything exact, and it just wasn't really, an option. It's just like, this is what I have to do. And I was familiar with Setlist FM at the time, but I didn't even realize that you could kind of like group it by tour, and they do have some cool like statistic kind of things, but it's still like, for this specific tour, it's like I wanted things organized a pretty specific way. And especially as it went on, the spreadsheet kind of organized itself based off what I felt like it needed for the information I wanted anyway.
Right.
And that wasn't exactly what you could get on Setlist FM, and I don't want to trust other people. I want to know that, and thanks to a lot of fans on the, was it Wowway forums, is that how you say it?
Yeah. World of Weird Al Yankovic forums, weirdarforum.com.
Yeah. And so, I had a feeling I could trust people there more than anybody else for
right.
like accurate set lists and stuff. So, it was a bit of a crowdsourcing situation to get all the data.
Yeah, this is amazing. For anybody who has not actually seen this song tracker, I mean, I'm gonna do a horrible job explaining it because it is so complex. There's just so many layers to it. Basically, what you did here is you've tracked every single song that was performed, and then you break it down by how many times it was performed on the tour, exactly which dates it was performed, and not just that, but where in the set list it was performed as well. And then there's all different statistics. There's different tabs on here where you can charts and graph things out. You can see exactly the overall percentage of how many times, the song was played on the tour, the total number. You can kind of filter it, so you can get to any sort of data you really want. And it's just, you could really spend, anybody who's familiar with a spreadsheet, or even if you're not familiar with a spreadsheet, you can just kind of come in here and just kind of crunch numbers and just kind of look at things in totally different ways that you might never have imagined to even think to look at these set lists, these songs.
Yeah, I think it makes it, even more impressive what he did to organize the tour and everything to, be able to see it all in one place.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel like at least one point, Dave, help me with my memory here, but I believe we talked to Bermuda at one point and mentioned the spreadsheet, and he said he's referred to it. I believe when we were talking to Lex Friedman, who was in charge of getting Weird Al onto Stitcher for this tour, he had referenced your spreadsheet, Brad. He had his own similar spreadsheet, but he admitted to checking yours to make sure his was accurate, make sure everything was matched up. So I can't imagine that when you were starting this project that you even would have considered that it would be shared with other people, let alone seen and mentioned and used by people working on the tour.
Definitely not. I thought there may be a handful of fans like me who might think it's funny to check it out and like, oh, look what this weirdo did. But it turns out some people found it pretty useful.
One thing I really love is some of the songs do have notes attached to them. So like if it was the first ever performance of that song, there's a little note for that. Or for one of these performances of the song Bob, the note is that it was played in the wrong key. You also have tracked things like any drum solos or any other type of solo that happened on the show, which is just, it's incredible. And it's fun to laugh at, but it's also just from an academic perspective, just a really cool way to look at the entire tour.
I think so too. And again, a lot of the the weird notes of something that happened unusual, or even first time performances, I didn't know that stuff off the top of my head. And, it was fans that would tell me these things as they went to shows, so I was there for some of them, but, certainly it made it easy when people were reporting, so many other people were so excited by the tour and they wanted to tell their experience. And, I just followed along on those posts. And of course the spreadsheet, I was going to mention earlier, a lot of that data is, it's formulas that are, I just plug in some of the information and then it does its own thing to generate the percentages and, even like some color coding formatting that happens automatically based off of formulas. And a lot of that stuff, like I was certainly, I'm no master at Excel or anything, but anything I kind of wanted to do, I could ask around. And, on the internet, there's, people as passionate as I am about Weird Al, they're passionate about spreadsheets. There are forums for that. So I could go on and ask them, hey, how do I do this? And, so I used a lot of other people to get the spreadsheet to where it is.
No, I say it is an incredible spreadsheet. It really is. Just the, whatever you started out with and then transformed it into this thing at the end, it is beautiful. It is a masterpiece. It is wonderful. It is a great reference site. It's a great reference tool. We've already talked about that. And it's so full of detail. It is absolutely amazing. I'm just curious now, Brad. Obviously, as the shows are happening, you're collecting data as they go along. Did you ever run into any issues where you just couldn't track down data for any particular shows?
Oh, no, I don't think so. It seems like, every show had somebody who was ready to, maybe there were one or two that took a little longer. But, the vast majority had fans, ready. I guess the spreadsheet got a little more popular as it went on, and people were, more eager to kind of help out with it. I don't know if it was just that, but I mean, they were posting on the thread about it to help with that information. But, each city, I think, each city had its own thread, and, certainly some of the stuff just came from those individual threads. And there may have been one or two shows that were in some kind of, it felt like maybe they were some of the more remote type venues and stuff that took like it had to wait a few days or something for somebody to hold on a second. My dog is wanting my attention. Sorry.
No worries.
Sorry about that.
Yes. All right. So for the most part, you were able to track down data as was coming out. Maybe a few days here or there. It might have took you to update a couple of these shows. I'm curious. At the end of the tour, Weird Al released on Stitcher the entire tour. Did you go back at all and listen to any of those shows? And if so, did you end up having to make any corrections to any of the data in the spreadsheet based on those shows, or add any information?
I can't remember, specifically doing that. There's a few things I could say about that. So part of me, I was wondering, as many people that have, kind of looked at it, and kind of verified things after the fact, I was like, people, please check as much as and try to confirm that what you see is correct. I'm still wondering, there's got to be one or two little things that don't quite match up. So I want to challenge if anyone's listening to listen to every single Stitcher show and follow the spreadsheet and verify and audit it for me.
I love that. I love that.
It's I would kind of love to hear every show, but one thing I think another fan, I don't know if you would know who it was, but they wanted to start a project where they kind of wanted to crowdsource fans to pick a song, each person kind of pick a song and try to listen to it every version on Stitcher and review it or whatever and try to
I
figure
remember
out which
something like
versions
that.
were best. Whew, that was a huge undertaking. There were a lot of people who were like, "Oh yeah, I want to do that," and I did. There were some songs that were special to me, 2 songs, and so I was like, I'm going to do it, and I did it, and that I don't think people realized how big an undertaking. I think even the person that organized it eventually was kind of like, this is too overwhelming. But I went through my 2 songs, darn it, and I made notes for every single one. But I've studied a lot of music, and I kind of understand how instruments work and all that, and was able to make more detailed notes than anybody's going to care about. But at least I was able to pick out the ones I really like and kind of put them as my favorites in my MP3 collection or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, those 2 songs are Nature Trail to Hell and The Biggest Ball of Twine in Minnesota, which were kind of the ones I wanted to hear live most.
Yeah. Oh, those were probably
for sure. Yeah.
up there for me too on that last tour. I wanted to go through a couple of these insights that we can glean from your spreadsheet. For example, the song that was played the most was the Unplugged medley, which was played every single show. So that was the most played song, and then the second most played song was, unsurprisingly, The Saga Begins, which was the closer to 60 of the shows. And there are songs that just really weren't played very often. Some of the lower ones, actually the lowest one of the main set, and not any of the fake songs or the solos, was That Boy Could Dance. And that unfortunately was the one song I did not get to hear on the 10 shows I went to. So you would have only had a 9.09% chance to have heard That Boy Could Dance. And I missed the boat on that one, unfortunately.
I got to hear that. I did get to hear that one.
Dave, I think you did too, didn't you?
I did. I got to hear. That might have been one of the last ones I was waiting to hear too. I think it might have been. I don't remember exactly where I heard that the first time, but I'm actually using the spreadsheet right now to try see if I can track that information down. But yeah, I did actually get to hear every single song on the tour. Other than some of these those one-time only cover songs. Obviously, I didn't go to every single show on the tour in order to do that. Yeah, I mean, crunching these data is a lot of fun, and you did a lot of it already. But just kind of sorting through and just kind of getting to go through them and hearing and checking out just how frequently a lot of these songs were played and weren't, and then just amazingly like something like The Biggest Ball of Twine in Minnesota was played at more at more than half of the shows when, like you said, the That Boy Could Dance was played at less than 10% of the shows. So it's kind of interesting to see, Al is the one who put together the set lists. We know that. Why did he choose the set list and how did he choose the frequency for these songs? It's a very interesting look into Al's thought process.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I'm sure that was part of my interest as well. I do have to say that I lied. I wasn't there for That Boy Could Dance. I heard it on a recording.
Okay.
There you go.
I wasn't intentionally lying.
I found it. It was the American Music Theater in Lancaster, Pennsylvania was the first time I heard that.
Okay.
On March 18th. And I know that because I'm looking at it in this spreadsheet. So this is great. It's wonderful.
Right.
And that is only the second time he played That Boy Could Dance on the entire tour. So I got to hear it the second time he played it on the tour.
That's awesome.
And the first time, I missed the first time he played it. This is an interesting fact. At the Danforth Music Theater in Toronto, according to the notes here, it says this is the first known live performance of That Boy Could Dance.
Yeah.
So considering that,
Wow.
Al has played That Boy Could Dance live for an audience 7 times. And Dave, you got to see one of those. So that's at least one of those. So that's very cool.
1/7. At least one of them. I have to look at the other ones.
Now, a number that really jumps out for me, and I think any other nerdy fan would see this number too, is 3 of the songs were played on exactly 27.27% of the shows. And that was Fun Zone, Mr. Frump and the Iron Lung, and Airline Amy. So I think that's just, that's something that we would have never known without this spreadsheet, that it's exactly 27.27%.
Yeah. And somebody, I think, pointed that out to me before I had even noticed it, and I was like, wow, that's a good observation. And I would think it's maybe, just a coincidence, but Fun Zone was the very first song played on the tour, the very first night, and that's one of the 27. So, that's starting to get... Did Al plan that?
Yeah, you have to wonder too, right? Because Mr. Frump and the Iron Lung is one of the very, very first songs that Weird Al ever learned how to play on the accordion. So that song's very special to him. And Airline Amy, AMY, Alfred Matthew Yankovic, he's made that connection before. You wonder if those songs were intentionally done by Weird Al to be 27.27%. And if so, amazing. Great credit to you, Weird Al.
Man, you were really cracking the code there. This is
National treasure.
deep Illuminati secrets.
I could be, or it could just be a total coincidence.
Was there anything else weird like that jumped out to you as in all the time you spent with this spreadsheet, Brad?
More of it was hearing things from other people. There was another thread that was, I may have started, I can't remember, but it was like anomalies and oddities or something from the tour, like things that you could tell weren't, like, this version wasn't played the same as it was every other time, or something bizarre, because I wanted to start a thread and encourage that to be, also get notes to put in the spreadsheet as much as I could. So that's where a lot of those came from. And I think there was somebody posted something like Al sang half a verse of us. It's like, I think maybe people thought it was the first time he performed it, and it's like, well, he sang half a verse of it in an interview in 1985 or something. It's like, yeah, I'm a big fan, but wow, and I just don't have that kind of memory either. But
now, this is a great one that you do have noted in the spreadsheet. This was on the April 28th show in Wichita, Kansas, the Orpheum Theater. Dave, actually, one of our good friends and listeners, Blair, shared this with us recently, that when singing Nature Trail to Hell, Al said, "See that Buddy Hackett coming right at you."
Love it.
It's so bizarre. I love that. I love that it's in here and we can easily find that and reference that.
Yeah, those really take the sheet to the next level. Without those notes, it would be fine and like technically good, but the people that added in those crazy details just like really put it in the next dimension for sure. That's a good one.
Absolutely.
Now, I seem to remember at one point, and I wasn't able to figure this out before we started chatting, but at one point, I believe, maybe more than once, but at least one point, Al mentioned, like, oh, add that to the spreadsheet or something during the tour. Do you remember or know where that was when that came up?
I remember people saying that when it happened, and I was like, wow, really? Like, is he talking about this spreadsheet? And that's funny because I think I would have been, it may not be on the sheet. And just, maybe I should put it in there as a note because I know I do have that information saved somewhere, probably where a couple people brought it up.
Yeah.
In which I think I eventually found the recording of the show and like put that little clip out because I was like, I think he might be talking about this sheet here.
Definitely was talking about this sheet.
Yeah, but I think out of trying not to be too bragging about the sheet, I might not have put it in there. But if not, I think it's worth adding in there. I should probably do that. So I'll try to remember because off the top of my head, I don't remember like which show it was. But yeah, I did take the clip of the audio out, as well as from some of I got to admit from some of your all's podcasts when people have mentioned it, I also snipped out those moments.
Oh, cool. Oh, great.
for my own archives. And I mean, I'm kind of a digital hoarder. It kind of goes into how this all comes about because, as far as I could remember, even back in the cassette tape days, I was recording stuff and taking pictures and documenting things. And I had like my grandmother kept pretty good photo albums, really organized and stuff, and my mom too. And I would like scan those photos in digitally and organize them that way, and all this stuff just like adds up, and it's sort of a weird addiction maybe that I have, because it's overwhelming and kind of impossible to keep track of, but I just do my best to find ways to organize it all. And and like all the concerts I've ever been to, I don't know, I'm sure it's well over 100, maybe in the hundreds now. I've got a document for that, and
wow,
just tons of like text documents and things of like all these things I've done in my life kind of organized. So when I reference them, like, did I see that band? When was that? And I'll pull up the document and search and find it. So that, and I kind of got into work in that field. Like I studied percussion into college a little ways, like playing music. But as I got into college, like I was always recording our concerts and keeping archive and videotaping them and stuff. And, I think my teacher was like, maybe you should think about going to recording school. You like doing that so much. And so, I got into recording audio and like post-production for video and like delivery, and that's kind of what I've been doing for quite a few years now. And it's, a lot of that is managing huge amounts of videos and like raw footage and stuff and keeping track of it and a lot of spreadsheets. And it was really one of my bosses who would develop ways for us to use spreadsheets to keep track of like thousands and thousands of digital assets, and it's like this would be impossible without some kind of like database and spreadsheets. And so he helped me understand the power of that kind of thing. And it's like I can do that. I'm not like a computer programmer, but and yeah, that was I think he was my boss at the time when the spreadsheet happened. So it was a confluence of the stars aligning.
I think the question that probably Dave and I and maybe every single person listening has is, with the brand new Vanity tour in 2022, do you think you're going to resurrect this project and create a new spreadsheet?
Well, yes, and I'm here to announce it's going to be behind a very expensive paywall. Only elites will be able to see. No, absolutely. At first I was like, I don't know if I'll do it again, but as it didn't take long with that idea rolling around to be like, yeah, of course I'm going to do it again. And I'm certainly looking forward to that. I think I have all the tickets that I'm going to be attending this time. And yeah, the first tour, I ended up going to more shows than I had originally planned on. Which there's a little bit of a story there. I don't know if you want to hear about my personal experience on the 2018 tour.
Let's hear it.
But well, as I said, I really wanted to hear Nature Trail to Hell and Biggest Ball of Twine in Minnesota, and the tour started, and I'm doing the spreadsheet, and like you said, it was like 50% or more for the twine ball. So I had, I don't know, at least 4 or 5 tickets to shows. So I'm like, the odds are very much in my favor about this. And so the first one I went to was in Lexington, and I got there early and was kind of killing time walking around the town a little bit, and thought I'd stop in this restaurant bar thing and get a drink, and was kind of there for a moment and looked over and was like, this guy looks familiar. And I was like, are you with Al? And he's like, yeah. And he was, I guess, the stage manager of Hawkeye.
Oh, cool.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
I'd recognized him from, I think he's been on older live videos or something. And so that was, right off the bat, kind of funny. And, there's like somebody there with him, and, he was super nice. And we chatted briefly. He said it was somebody in the crew's birthday, I think. And, and I was like, I wonder if he believes that I really, wasn't actually stalking him. Hopefully he didn't think I was. Because, I know there are plenty of people who want to, see any glimpse of Weird Al or any of his crew. So, but that was not the case there. I just happened to end up in the same place. But that was a good show. I think might have heard Nature Trail to Hell that night. I think right off the bat got that one checked off the list. So I was happy. And then I think he went around a little while and then came back to Louisville, which was close. But that one I don't think I was originally planning to go to at first. But then I kind of changed my mind. And at that time, tickets, like, there weren't too many seats available, and the only decent ones were VIP, and that's something I'd never really gone for, but I was like, this tour is special and I want to get some decent seats, and so I splurged once for the VIPs. Very glad I did. I ended up bringing my mom to that show, which was kind of nice, because she was in, supportive of me and everything. Both my parents were as a kid, she knew I was huge into Weird Al and would buy the albums and stuff for me. And, so I was glad to be able to take her, and we both met him briefly. And so at that point he had already, I guess, mentioned the spreadsheet. So I printed out the, state of it at that time and gave it to him to sign there. So I've got the spreadsheet up to that point.
I love that.
Autographed by him.
What did he say? What did he say when you had him sign it?
Well, from what people had said, that he mentioned it, I thought, he would instantly know, but he just kind of, it was kind of hard to read. He, I'm sure was, pretty tired and everything. I mean, he was definitely pleasant and nice, but I just remember him kind of investigating it. Like, he was just really looking at it, and not saying too much. And like maybe a little confused, or maybe he was just trying to like decipher it all right off the bat there. But anyway, and my mom's there also trying to talk to him, because I had her bring an old keyboard magazine that had him on the cover that I've had, since that magazine came out, and I was like, Mom, here, you have him sign this magazine. So, and she was trying to talk to him about how my third grade teacher took that magazine away from me because I just wanted to like read it over and over again in class instead of paying attention. And she had to go like confront the teacher because she wouldn't give it back to me.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that third grade teacher was was my least favorite teacher ever.
Yeah.
Anyway. So continuing. The next show I saw was in Chattanooga, and I think that's the smallest venue I've ever seen him in. It was a nice theater, but it was quite small, and it was a good show, but still hadn't heard Biggest Ball of Twine. And and a little bit later went to Atlanta. At that show I got there super early and waited in the car, and I guess had my key on and accidentally drained my battery, and so fortunately there was a fan there who jumped my car off, and so I sat in it for like 30 minutes running to charge up the battery. Anyway, these things happen when you get out and go on road trips.
Of course.
So it was another good show, but still no twine ball. And I'm like, wow, this was supposed to be. My sheet was telling me half the shows I've seen
right.
4. What's going on? And so then I went to Nashville, and that show I sat down in front of the Wooten brothers. I don't know if you know who they are. Victor Wooten and Future Man from Bela Fleck's kind of fusion-y
wow, okay.
music group. But they're really excellent musicians, and they're from Nashville, and I'm sitting right behind them at the Weird Al show, and I had to say something. It's because I was just sitting there by myself, and I was like, "Hey, aren't you Future Man?" And so anyway, that was kind of cool to
Cool.
see them there. I wouldn't really have expected them to be at a Weird Al show, but that was cool.
That's incredible.
But and that was going to be my last show, and it ended, and he got to the part where all the main originals were done and got into his the end, which was the medley and Saga Begins or whatever and all that. And so I got to say, the end of that, I was kind of like, wow, I'm in some kind of vortex of twine balllessness or something. And I kind of hate to say, after all these amazing shows, that one was kind of like, a little bummed, but it was an amazing experience anyway. But so anyway, I had been planning to see some friends of mine out in LA. I've got some family and friends out there, and it just kind of hit me a little bit later that maybe I should plan this trip around the Weird Al shows in LA. And was able to find tickets for 2 shows. He did 2 in LA, and I went to the first one, and it was a nice theater, enjoyed it. Still no twine ball.
Oh,
and then the second show was my last possible chance. Finally he played the Biggest Ball of Twine in Minnesota, and after all this like anticipation, I was like, it's not gonna be, it's not gonna live up to all the hype and anticipation I had for it, but it totally did. It was glorious, and I was like, like tearing up and stuff. It was a pretty transcendent moment.
Wow.
To finally hear that song, because it's beautiful. It's got this orchestration in the middle, and it's all like glorious, and I was able to end my last show of that tour on a very, very high note.
And how many more would you have gone to if for some reason he didn't play it?
I really don't think it would have been possible.
That would have
for
been
me
the
to go
last
anywhere
chance.
at all.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm so glad that it worked out.
But I knew, also, I was like, if he plays 2 shows in the same town, which, whenever he did that, he like never repeated really anything.
True.
I think was part of his point. So I was like, that would just, how could that not happen? Unfortunately, I heard it, so I was able to.
Well, I'm glad that story had a happy ending.
Yeah, I would be, who knows, I would be in a very bad place now. You wouldn't be talking to me if that happened.
Well, I hope that we have some crossover on the 2022 tour, because you said you're in Tennessee, and Dave and I are going to at least 3 shows in Tennessee. So hopefully there's some crossover. Hopefully we'll get to actually meet you in person and contribute directly to the spreadsheet. But this other question's kind of been burning a hole in my brain for a long time. I would say that we could call you, the king of the spreadsheets at this point. So just, you got to answer, do you got them all printed out on your bed sheets?
I've got somebody working on a quilt, actually.
Really?
For me, but no.
Oh, come on, you gotta do that.
I'm trying to remember if, I think I considered like printing them out and taking a picture, but I don't think I did that. But maybe, after this tour, I'll print out all the spreadsheets and put them on the bed sheets.
All right. Oh, that's awesome. Brad, we are so happy we got to chat with you right at the beginning, right as the tour is starting for the 2022, the unfortunate return of the ridiculously self-indulgent, ill-advised Vanity tour. We're so excited to see how the 2022 Weird Al Vanity Tour song tracker makes out. I know Dave and I will certainly be contributing in any way that we can for the shows that we're going to. Hopefully our listeners can contribute if they're going to some, obscure shows or something. So we cannot wait to see what it turns out to be. Brad, we can check out, you've got this old website that you mentioned to us before the interview where people can get some of your contact information if they want to get in touch with you. It is bradhebert.net, and that's bradhebert.net. And I'm sure your spreadsheet will be shared all over the place, but Dave and I will make sure that a link lives somewhere on our website, probably on the show page for this episode, so people can easily reference to it and get to it and save it to their favorites and bookmarks for many years of future reference. So with all that said, Brad, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing the process and telling us your inspiration and everything about it. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's, not every day I meet people that I get to geek out so much about it with. And thank you for, enjoy a lot of your podcasts I've listened to. And, if anyone out there has ideas for, improving the sheet somehow, things like that, reach out. Let me know. We'll make the next one even better.
Well, Dave and I are definitely going to have some of those suggestions for you. When we were reviewing the Strings Attached Tour episodes, we did an episode for every single show that one of us saw. And I think at least every bonus episode referenced your spreadsheet and how, we're hoping that our listeners were creating a spreadsheet based on crazy things like if the green tape sticker was there, or if what color Al's drink was for Jurassic Park. So it certainly it sparked a lot of joy for Dave and I, and for a lot of Weird Al fans. So thanks again for creating this spreadsheet, and yes, for being on the podcast.
Cool. Yeah, I can't wait to go to these shows and hope to see you all there.
Well, thank you once again to Brad Hebert for that incredible interview. We cannot wait to see what he comes up with for this tour.
Be sure to check out the episode page on our website, weirdalpodcast.com, for links to the 2018 Weird Al Vanity Tour song tracker and the brand new 2022 Weird Al Vanity Tour song tracker.
Be sure to check out the tabs at the bottom of Brad's spreadsheet for extra fun items like charts and graphs and all the original songs that Al did not play on that tour, as well as other enriching content.
Well, this isn't really where we usually schedule the news, but I feel the winds a-changing and feel an openness to accept change. So without further ado, it's time for What's Happening in Weird Al-related news. Let's see. Well, there's no news to report.
And yeah, if there is any news, well, we can't tell you.
Canadian Podcast Commission regulations again?
Yep, that works.
I'd really blocked out more time for this section.
Well, maybe a spatula hotline message will come through, huh? Oh, it sounds like we have a message on
Oh,
the three...
sorry, that was, Frank.
Oh, this definitely does not smell like Frank.
It was Frank!
Whew. Whew. Anyway, since there is either no Weird Al related news, or we're choosing to save it to talk about elsewhere, or the Canadian government is censoring us or something, maybe we can address the podcast related news.
Sure, let me just... Now it's time for what's happening in Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast related news!
We can still do that, right?
All right, well, I'll check the Canadian Podcast Commission guidelines. Yep, I think we're good.
I'm pretty sure that's just a Wizard Burger wrapper.
Now, as many of you now know, the music artist Weird Al Yankovic is going on what's called a tour, where he will be playing what are called concerts.
Yeah, our audience is pretty smart. I think they get that.
Yeah, okay, yes, you're right. So anyway, between Dave and I, we are intending to attend at least 38 of these concerts, and we plan to record a review for each of them.
But what you may not realize is that Ethan and I also have a podcast dedicated to our all-time favorite and the all-time greatest musician of all time, called Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Yes, and this podcast, as it's referred to, takes what we like to refer to as a lot of freaking time to make.
And while our intern Frank does most of the heavy lifting...
Well, all of the heavy lifting.
Well, yeah, but Ethan and I are still needed for certain parts of producing this podcast.
In order to maintain the quality you love, and the quality that those in our Patreon family respect, brand new inch episodes may no longer drop every week as they've done for the past 3 years straight.
When they do drop, they will still be on Wednesdays, and bonus episodes will continue to drop whenever our intern Frank decides to push that darn button.
We know that you know that we are huge fans of Weird Al and his band, and this tour is obviously a dream situation for us.
Plus, we get to be on the road and interact with other fans and friends, many of which we have not seen in years, who all share that same passion as us.
So it should be no surprise that we want to take the opportunity to enjoy as many of those concerts as possible.
And don't worry, we still have every intention of making the same high-quality podcasts that you have known to expect from us. Just don't be surprised if a full-inch episode does not drop every single week like you are used to.
One thing you can count on is that you can continue to expect our lousy, rotten intern Frank to continue to be lousy and or rotten.
Oh yeah, just like yesterday when our intern Frank messed up my lunch. Oh boy, the parts per million of salt molecules were off by at least 1.6527% in my mashed potatoes. Can you believe that?
I can't believe you forgave him for that, Dave.
Is that what he told you? I certainly did not forgive him for that.
That's not what he told me.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll address that later. But as long as our listeners are subscribed to the podcast, like we've been telling you to do each and every week for 3 full years, then you have nothing you need to do.
That's right. When a new episode is ready, your podcast app or intern or whatever will take care of the rest.
All right. So how are we doing on time?
Say something silly. We got 3 seconds to fill.
Santa eats Wheeze Chiz, banana fudge sundae.
Perfect. That was exactly the amount of time I had blocked off. Oh no! My schedule!
Sounds like we've got ourselves a message on the 347 Spatula Hotline, the official hotline of Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast. Alrighty, intern Frank, now it's time for you to shine and play that message for us.
Hey Dave, hey Ethan, it's Kenneth from Tacoma, Washington. I just pulled out my ukulele and the song just popped into my head, so I thought I'd play it for you. Come with me to a magic land. You'll find Weird Al and his band. A podcast show Dave and Ethan are the hosts. 2000-inch, it's bigger than most. Dave and Ethan, 2000-inch Weird Al podcast. Yeah.
Well, Oh, thank you so much for that lovely song, Kenneth. I always love it when you send us some nice original Kenneth Gwinnett material.
I love that. Pretty stinking majestic, of course. Completely on theme. I just can't wait to be wearing my brand new Weird Al Hawaiian shirt and listen to that on repeat.
We're so lucky to have so many amazing, talented listeners. Keep those calls coming in.
Okay. I moved a few things around on the schedule. Now, as long as we throw to the closing credits right now, we'll be back on track with this episode.
This episode?
This
episode is brought to you in part by Vegan Burrito
my
Restaurant,
schedule.
Burrito in Troy, New York, home of the 2-pound double wrapped in a quesadilla burrito, and Wizard Burger in Albany, New York. Come on down to Burrito and Burrito your burrito, or hop on over to Wizard Burger like we are doing today right before tonight's concert for mouth-watering, loaded, dare I say beefy, vegan burgers. From Troy to Albany to Uranus, Burrito, and Wizard Burger feed the hungry with out-of-this-world plant-based real food, always vegan style. Visit burritosquared.com and wizardburger.com to order ahead.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast is brought to you absolutely free thanks to our incredible sponsors Burrito, Discover Darwin, and Jackson Scoggins.
Our podcast is also supported by everyone in our Patreon family, with special thanks to our amazing close personal friend level Patreon supporters, Jake, Blair, Jared, Allison, Frank from the Bank, Adriana, Zeb, Scott, UH Jeff, Javier, Kenneth, and also thanks to Robert and everyone else in our pretty stinking majestic Patreon family.
If you enjoy our family-friendly, wild and wacky, and not necessarily weekly Weird Al podcast, please consider supporting us at patreon.com/2000inch. There are awesome benefits like getting your name on the podcast and access to secret episodes. And now would be a good time to join if you haven't already, because you will be the absolute first to hear the unfortunate return of the ridiculously self-indulgent, ill-advised Vanity Tour concert review bonus episodes.
And don't forget to check out our official merchandise over at shop.2000inch.com. The unfortunate return of the ridiculously self-indulgent, ill-advised Vanity Tour is underway right now, so make sure you get your orders in today for your We Hate Intern Frank shirts, so you can share just exactly how you feel about our lousy, rotten,
Farting,
smelly, ugly intern Frank with everyone else on the tour.
we love hearing from our listeners and other Weird Al fans. Join our Facebook community and post about Weird Al by visiting group.2000inch.com. And we also love it when we receive voicemail via our official patent-pending 27-hour-a-day podcast hotline, 347-SPATULA. You might even hear your message in a future episode.
For everything about our podcast, including incredible past episodes and guests, be sure to visit us at weirdalpodcast.com. And while you're there, click on Black and White and Weird All Over bonus episodes for our special bonus episode book series, where author John Bermuda Schwartz walks us through his book, page by page and picture by picture. And while you're there, be sure to also click on Ridiculously Self-Indulgent bonus episodes to follow along with our adventures on this tour.
Keep up on new episodes, podcast news, and events by following at 2000inch on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And thank you for subscribing and leaving reviews on your favorite podcast apps. Make sure you're subscribed, because not only does it help the podcast, but it also does a wonder on bunions.
Thank you once again to our guest, Brad Hebert. Thank you to Jackson Scoggins, and thank you to Kenneth Gwinnett for calling in with that wonderful song. And an extra special shout out to our good friend and beer aficionado, Joe Jaffa. Thank you to the Grammy Award-winning Jim Kimo West for our incredible podcast theme song. And thank you to Weird Al Yankovic, as this podcast probably would not exist without him. And a big thank you to all of you, our listeners, subscribers, Patreon supporters and sponsors, and everyone else who makes our podcast possible.
Thank you for choosing Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast for the past 3 years. And until next time, remember to gill and chill.
All right, Ethan, I don't think I've ever asked you, what are you most looking forward to on the unfortunate return of the ridiculously self-indulgent, ill-advised Vanity Tour?
I'm sure the music is going to be great, and I can't wait to surround myself with friends old and new, and get out of the house and tour chase and see parts of the country I've never been to. But honestly, I really just want to see if that weird green square is still around.
That was Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, episode 156-inch.
Hopefully there's a spreadsheet tracking these taglines.
Come with me to a magic land. You'll find Weird Al and his band. A podcast show Dave and Ethan are the hosts. 2000-inch is bigger than most. Dave and Ethan, 2000-inch Weird Al podcast. Yeah.
Elmo's Got a Gun is another good one.